Your test Friday covers 4 properties. The commutative property, if you'll see I underlined the CO, that reminds us the commutative property says you can change the order. To commute is to go from one place to another. And if I start here and take either direction, I'm going to end at the same destination. The commutative property is to change order in both addition and multiplication. The associative property is known as the grouping property because all signs are the same and you can change the groups. If you look at our picture here, the order is the same, blue, purple, green, blue, purple, green. They're just hanging out with someone else. They're just associating or talking to someone else. The associative property is marked with parentheses. So we could group these two and group these two, and the associative property says the number of people on the bench stayed the same. The identity property is something that never changes. Your ID is something that never changes. Times 1 or plus 0 are things that never change. Anything times 1 is itself, and anything plus 0 is itself. The distributive property is the property that we think about God loving us. God loves you and God loves me. In math, it works like this. 4 times 37, or 4 loves 37. We can rewrite that as 4 loves 30 and 7. To distribute it, to use the distributive property, means to write 4 times 30 plus 4 times 7. Finally, you can do it with a variable. And so here is 6 loving x and 3. 6 loves x and 6 loves 3. A simplified expression says 6x plus 18. So 6 times x is 6x and 6 times 3 is 18. On your test, you will be expected to look at examples and name the property. 14 times 1 is 14. That says anything times 1 is itself. That's the identity. 8 plus 5 plus 9 is the same as 8 plus 5 plus 9. So the sum of 8 plus 5 with 9 added is the same as 5 plus 9 with 8 added. If you notice, the order stayed the same, so it's not commutative, but the groupings changed, so we call it associative. Three times 4 plus 1. Now I see groupings here. I may be tempted to think that this is the associative property, but because this is a combination of multiplication and addition, this is proving the distributive property. 3 times 4 plus 3 times 1. After you've named the property, you're going to have to use the properties to solve. So 4 times y equals y times 4. And what property tells us that? The commutative property. 17 plus 45 plus 2 equals 17 plus 45 plus 2. The only thing that changed was the groupings, so this is the associative property. Something plus 0 equals 91. To be 91 in the identity property because anything plus 0 is itself. 27 times 56. 27 times 50 and 6. Something loves 50 and something loves 6. It must be 27. And this is the distributive property where the 27 was distributed to the 50 and the 6. 4 plus 7 equals 7 plus 4. This is the commutative property because they are switched order. After you've identified the properties, you're going to use the properties to simplify expressions. This one says 3 times 7s. Or 3 times 7 times s. And grouping the 7 and the s doesn't help me simplify it, but grouping the 3 and the 7 does. So this would equal 21s. And 21s is able to be simplified because of the associative property. 15.4 times 1 times f. 15.4 times 1 is 15.4 times f is what's left. The identity property says anything times 1 is itself. 17 plus y plus 2. This one I could switch the order of the 2 and the y and end up with 19 plus y because of the commutative property. 14 and 2/10 times w times 2. 14 and 2/10 times 2 times w means that I could do 14 times 2, 14.2 times 2, and that would be 28.4 times w. Using the distributive property, there will be a section on your test where you'll be expected to tell the answer to 8 times 45 using the distributive property. That doesn't mean I want you to multiply 45 times 8. It means I want you to show me that you know 8 times 45 can be solved by doing 8 times 40 plus 8 times 5. 8 times 40 is 320, and 8 times 5 is 40, and 300 plus 40 is 360. I want to be able to see the same thing for 4 times the sum of 5 and 3. So 4 times 5 plus 4 times 3, which is 20 plus, which is 32. Now, by all means, go back and check your work, because this answer should answer what this would equal if you used regular multiplication, and this would be 8 times 4, which is 32, which is a check for this one. Finally, I want you to be able to show it to me with variables. So we would do 3 times y plus 3 times 6. So 3y plus 18. The last thing you're going to have to do on your test is complete a chart that shows that you know how to simplify expressions. So I give you the expression, I ask you to simplify it, and name the property that you would use. N plus 10 plus 3 would be the associative property, because I would change the groups to this and get n plus 13 associative. 9 plus 4 plus m would be commutative, because I would change the order of these two and get 13 plus m. 6 times 2 times m would be associative, because I would change the groups to here and get 12m. 3v times 4 would have to be commutative, because I would have to change the order to get 3 times 4 times v. So 12v would be commutative. 0 times j times 6. You could say commutative, so you could do 0 times 6, which is 0, and then 0 times j, which is 0. But any way you do it, you're going to end up with 0 as your answer, and the 0 property is what it is that says anything times 0 is 0. 15f times 1 is 15f, because anything times 1 is itself, so we call it the identity property. And then finally, 6 plus 0 is 6. 6 plus g is also the identity property, because anything plus 0 is itself.